What's up, everybody? We are back with our redraft podcast. We're going to be debating some players that are currently going at similar ADPs according to best ball drafts. As always, joined by my brother Brian, our father Jeff. How's it going, guys?
It's a beautiful day in Southern California.
Yep, cannot complain.
Yeah, we're less than 3 weeks now from the actual NFL draft starting, so that's exciting. Can't wait for that. But other than that, it's been a pretty slow news for the last week or so. Not much has happened except for lots of rumors, which is pretty normal for this time of year. It's hard to believe. Can't believe everything you hear. You know, everyone's putting out smoke screens and things like that. But we're just going to get right into it with, again, debating players at each position and who you would take. And these are players that, according to best ball drafts, which is really the only drafts that are happening right now, that are going in similar rounds and around the similar picks. So we'll get started, I guess, with the running back position. And we have Travis Etienne versus Ramondre Stevenson. So Etienne is currently going around pick 31. And Ramondre Stevenson's going around pick 34, so essentially around the same spot. Dad, you got Etienne. Do you want to start off and why you would take Etienne over Ramondre Stevenson at this spot?
Yeah, Etienne had a pretty good second year after his first year was wiped out by injury, so he had a nice comeback from that, and he was so good that they Jacksonville traded their other running back. Was that James Robinson, I think, and then so Etienne was the focus. So I expect him to take another jump this year. He was over 1,000 yards, so he was what you want to call the bell cow, even though he didn't carry the ball a tremendous amount of times, but he still is the main man in Jacksonville. Good quarterback, good coach, good offense. So Etienne, I expect him, he's viable out of the backfield, and he'll be the focal point of that offense other than the quarterback. So Etienne is definitely one of the go-to running backs this year for a redraft.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I mean, he had over 1,400 total yards, only 5 touchdowns, but again, hard to predict those. Those can always go up. Probably will go up from last year. So 35 catches. For some reason, I thought he had a little bit more, but I don't know. I thought he was maybe closer to 45, 50, but yeah, it definitely looks good for sure. Brian, Ramondre Stevenson, make the case for Stevenson.
Yeah, just real quick on Etienne. I kind of thought it is kind of funny to see that he only had 35 catches because he was, that's kind of what we kept hearing about him. It's like, oh, they're gonna do because he went to college with Trevor Lawrence. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was definitely that was kind of like the narrative. He's gonna catch so many balls. Which is kind of funny because I don't know if that was necessarily in Ramondre Stevenson's profile. I know I kind of heard it here and there. And maybe that was just because he was paired with Damian Harris last year. And it was kind of like, well, if someone's going to catch the ball, it'll be Stevenson and not Harris. Yeah, so they had very similar years last year in terms of total yards and touchdowns and everything. Ramondre definitely seemed like the better guy, at least in my eyes, last year. Maybe I didn't pay enough attention to what Etienne did or what he did, but I definitely think they're going to have similar rush attempts. I think if the trend continues, and I think there's a kind of a good reason that it could be this way, Ramondre will probably maybe get more balls thrown his way, less competition in the receiving area of the Patriots versus Jacksonville. Arguably the better quarterback, like you said, but that doesn't necessarily always work in the running back's favor. Dump offs to Ramondre are still count as catches. So, yeah, I would say him being a bigger part of his offense, even though it might not be as good of an offense, will be more valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I was just looking at Ramondre in half PPR finished at RB11, Etienne RB17, which is funny because, yeah, they basically had identical stats in terms of 1,400 yards. Ramondre had 6 total touchdowns, but, it's the 35 more catches that he had, and that separates, that jumps you from RB17 to RB11, which is just shows you how valuable catches are, and even more so in PPR, which a lot of people play. So,
yeah, I'm looking at it on Sleeper, so it might be dialed into specifically our league settings, but I'm seeing the difference of 14 to 7 standard versus PPR for Ramondre. So, yeah, definitely like a huge jump there. Whereas Etienne kind of stayed a little stagnant. We're talking about half PPR, so not as big of a difference, but yeah, definitely a difference.
Yeah, I mean, not as big, but 35 catches, that's over 17 points, right? So it's significant enough, another point per game, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, yeah, Stevenson wasn't known. He got 28 passes in college, his 2 years in college. Etienne had like 50 his last year in college. So we'll see what they do with those two. I like them both. Probably lean Stevenson for me as of now. Now that could change when the draft comes, and we'll see what New England does in the draft, because I think Etienne's role is pretty secure, and I feel a little less confident in saying that for Stevenson, just a bit.
The Patriots
curse. The Patriots curse, yeah, for sure. But we've had two running backs now in the last 2 years, Damian Harris and then Stevenson, that have been reliable running backs from the Patriots. So hopefully they keep that up. Moving on to the wide receivers, we got Michael Pittman versus Christian Watson. And I will tell you that Pittman is currently going around pick 47, and Christian Watson's going around pick 44, 45. So again, very similar. We're talking, what's that, late third round? Or no, fourth round? Am I doing the math right? Late fourth round?
Yeah.
Mid to late fourth. So, Brian, we'll start with you. You have Christian Watson. Make your case for why Watson over Pittman.
I think basically we saw what the guy could do here in limited amounts. Like he wasn't there for quite a few games. I mean, it says he started 14, but I know he left at least one of those early. I'm thinking like maybe even 2 of them. Like he didn't really play. Like didn't he play like the second to last week? And he was kind of like, it was kind of one of those things where it's like, did we even play this guy? I'm kind of trying to remember him a little bit better. But we saw in like a small sample size like what he can do. And he was supposed to be the guy, when he was drafted. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be there, but I don't know if we can necessarily say Jordan Love is going to be like absolutely terrible. So it'll depend a lot on Love, but if he becomes like the go-to guy, he's really he's big, he's fast, so he can be used in a variety of ways. And they're gonna, if we're thinking Green Bay is gonna take even another step back from what they did last year, they're gonna have to be throwing the ball. They were not good last year, so we'll see. TBD. Like I think as your wide receiver 3, basically, or kind of depending on how you build your team, I guess. Like you could. I mean, I know we're saying he's going at the end of the 4th round, so. If you're talking about taking a running back and then 3 receivers and he's your 3rd one, I think you could do worse. That's for sure.
Yeah. I looked it up. So yeah, he played in 14 games, started 11. Between weeks of those 14 games, weeks 2, 4, 5, 8, and 9, he played less than 25 snaps. So hard to judge him off of those 5 games. So I'd really say like there was 9 games in which he was kind of out there majority of the season. So just over half the season. So
you definitely have to go through his stats with the fine-tooth comb, because I forgot that I do have snap percentages here. Like even in week 16, he only played 38% of snaps, but he did have 8 targets. And so you can kind of look at that as like a really good thing. But he did get got 6 catches for 50 yards. So it's kind of like, well, if he would have played more, he would have done more. But it's also kind of like you kind of have to take that into account when you're looking at his stats. Like you can't say like, well, he got this many. You can't say that he got all of his catches in 9 games, kind of a thing. Especially when you see stuff like that. So yeah, you got to go through with the fine tooth comb. But there's definitely encouraging things to see there.
Yeah. Dad, you are on Michael Pittman. Why Michael Pittman over Christian Watson?
Well, Pittman, I think you guys just kind of explained it when you were talking about Watson. Pittman is a little more established as the Colts' primary wide receiver. There's no, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? Type thing. So he's kind of been the man there. Isn't maybe he's not a pure wide receiver 1 in fantasy drafts, but he should be looked at as a good wide receiver 2 in my mind. He gets quite a few targets. I think he's coming up on his 3rd or 4th year. The only negative I see, I'm supposed to, be promoting him, but the quarterback situation in Indianapolis is in limbo right now. So I would definitely consider that when comparing these two. So, but Pittman, he has been established, and he had an okay year last year, even though the team was in a little turmoil. So you guys, can you guys read the stats off?
Yeah, for Pittman? Yeah, he had 99 catches, which I think surprises people. 99 catches, 925 yards, 4 touchdowns. His yards per reception went way down from basically 12.5 to less than 9.5, which is why he had less than 1,000 yards. I thought 140 targets.
One of the more impressive things, 141 targets, like that's a ton. You're getting pretty close to, what is that, like 8 per game, 9 per game?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's a ton. That's what you want, obviously.
For sure, and I know a lot of people will probably lean Watson on this side, but you talked about the limbo of the quarterback. We don't know much about Jordan Love right now, so you can kind of make an argument that's limbo as well. It's possible. I think there's a higher chance that the Packers, I'm just double checking what draft picks they have, but I think there's a higher chance that they take a receiver at pick 15 or a weapon at pick 15 than the Colts getting a first round receiver at pick 4 right now. I don't, that's not going to happen. So they could take one in the 2nd round. They have a very high 2nd round pick, of course, but and what if the Packers draft, Jackson Smith and Jigba or someone like that, and that's going to affect Watson. So I think Pittman is a little more secure as being the guy. It's just who's going to be throwing him the ball, right? So we'll see. He was everyone's kind of breakout last year, but obviously the quarterback carousel didn't help at all. But good. We'll move on to the tight end position, our favorite position here. Tight end position, we have Kyle Pitts versus Dallas Goedert. And just to double check those, we have Kyle Pitts is going about pick 62, 63, and Goddard's going around pick 68. So about 5 picks of separation. That's what, early to mid 6th round, early to mid 6th round. So let's see, Dad, you start with Kyle Pitts. Why Kyle Pitts over Goedert?
Pitts, Pitts is now going into his third year, so as a supposedly a tight end, but we know he lines up a lot as a wide receiver. But so he gets a lot of looks, like a lot of targets, and a lot of attention. So he's he's going to get the ball in his hands quite a bit. Atlanta runs the ball quite a bit, but they also, between Pitts and the other Drake London, that those guys get the majority of the looks. So I think, when we're talking fantasy tight ends, of course we want somebody who's going to get points, and you said it a couple of guys ago, how important the receptions are. I think he might have had a little down year last year. I think he got injured, but he's still definitely somewhere in the 3 to 5 range on tight ends. So he's a little more focus, with Atlanta and the Atlanta offense. So
yeah, for sure. He missed 7 games, and even the games he played, though, he was averaging less than 3 catches a game, and that was more because of Atlanta's play style. I think he had 28 catches in 10 games, which is not good, but we'll see this year. I mean, Brian, you got Goedert. Why Goedert over Kyle Pitts?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to the offense. Like Dad said about Pitts, like he's going to be a big focus of the offense, and we've seen that be really good, and we've also seen it kind of be kind of detrimental to these guys that we haven't seen do it yet, I guess. Like it's like, oh, Pitts is always being double teamed and stuff. It's like we've seen like that can be an issue, but sometimes it just doesn't matter for some guys, but I think Goedert will actually benefit from being on the field with, they have to guard Hurts, they have to guard, from running AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. So, I mean, he's kind of the third guy, which is not necessarily what you want for your tight end to be, but, he's obviously a big dude. I got to imagine he's a good red zone threat in that aspect. And we've seen him be good, and we know the Eagles are going to be good. So I'd say he has a better chance to land higher up in the charts than Kyle Pitts.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, they always talk about tight ends. You want to find someone who can be the first or second target, right? And that's not going to be Goedert on the Eagles. But he still had 700 yards, 55 catches last year, and he missed 5 games. So, he only playing in 12 games and still putting up those numbers, like, it's really impressive. I think it's mostly because it's basically the Eagles' offense was funneled between 3 guys in the passing game, and rather than a 4th option coming in there. So
yeah,
only 3 touchdowns. I don't think he's ever had more than 5 touchdowns in one season, which is a little interesting. But I mean, Goedert's just like he's a consistent guy. Unfortunately, we haven't really been able to see him as like the number 2 option with Zach Ertz was there. And then Zach Ertz was traded, and kind of for parts of the season, he was the number 2 guy. But I like Goedert. But with Kyle Pitts, I think there's tight end 1 potential. And I always like to go potential. So
yeah, it's a little tough with the tight ends because do you try and like go for one of these, like the guys like that are kind of always like in this like area, I guess, like it's going to be Hawkinson. He actually might go a little bit higher this year, but it's going to be like Waller and Kittle and stuff. Like they're going to go around this range, kind of like that those tight ends, like basically 3 to 8, and you can kind of like shuffle them up, and like it almost seems better to me to like wait another round or 2 and get a guy like that than go for one of these guys at the end of round 4.
Yeah, what you mean, Pitts or Goedert?
Yeah, just in general,
was-
I don't know. I just don't
I think
know.
it was beginning around 6, right?
Oh, was it? Sorry.
Pick 68 for Goddard and 62 for, so beginning to middle of round 6 for these guys.
Oh, well, yeah,
In
that
20
definitely
leagues.
changes things then. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was thinking about the receivers, I guess, still.
Mm-hmm. No, I kind of agree with you. Although, if I am going to take one, I'm going to take the guy that I think could finish tight end 1 in Pitts. So,
Yeah.
But some people might be afraid of him, which I don't disagree. We'll get into the last position, the quarterbacks. We have Tua versus Daniel Jones. Tua is actually going higher than Daniel Jones. Tua is at around pick 96. Daniel Jones around pick 99. Brian, I'll let you start. You are on Daniel Jones. Why would you take Daniel Jones over Tua?
Yeah, well, I mean, aside from like the injury concerns, which I don't know how true that stuff is with Tua. Like, is he concussion prone, or did he just have, a few concussions in a short period of time, and now people are freaking out, kind of a thing. Like, I don't know about that. That doesn't necessarily scare me off him. It's definitely something to consider. But Daniel Jones, I mean, he's got the rushing upside. Like, we saw him be like quarterback 9? Like, I have him in 9 in sleeper, so he's got to be somewhere around there, right?
For like, Jones, QB 11, QB 12.
8, 9, 10. Okay, 10. Yeah, okay. So, and that was only passing for 3,200 yards. Obviously, like.
Sorry, you mean for his fantasy finish?
Yes.
Last year? Oh, I was doing what quarterbacks they were taking. I'll double check for you.
Okay. Yeah, no, I see him as number 9 from last year. Again, I don't know if this is like specific to our league. I probably should get like more generalized stats when I'm looking at this.
No,
stuff.
You're right. QB 9.
Okay. But yeah, again, that was all like the rushing ability, which we've seen from him in the past, not to the same extent. But I mean, he did that basically with no receivers. And hopefully they get him a little more help. Like they got
Waller.
Yeah, they got him Waller, and they got Paris Campbell. However you feel about that, like he was obviously like highly touted and hasn't done it, usually because of health and stuff. So I imagine they're going to get another receiver and kind of like help this dude out a little bit, give him something a little bit to throw to. Maybe he's really not that good at it because we've barely seen him throw over 3,000 like every year basically, and so I don't know. I guess we'll have to see, but you can't deny the rushing upside and taking him as late as you can. It's definitely like, I think he has like maybe not quite like top 3 potential. I don't even know about top 5, but like all he has to do is run a little bit more and become like a slightly better passer. And you could definitely see him in the top half, I guess. So top 6 quarterbacks.
Yeah, for sure. I was just looking at his stats. He had 19 fumbles in 2019. That's insane. Luckily, he's cut that down a lot. But yeah, he's always had that rushing potential. You've seen it. Like, he's a really athletic guy. He's just never rushed for as much as he did last year. But he'll probably put up similar numbers and then hopefully throw, 5 more touchdowns. And there you go. So, Dad, you're on Tua. Why Tua over Daniel Jones?
Yeah, we seen what Tua can do last year. Minus the health concerns, we've heard enough about that, concussion problems. But when he was in there, he has stud wide receivers. He's got a great coach. Wide receivers are probably the top pair in the league, as far as I can think of. And, with Waddle and Hill. So when he gets the ball out accurately, he cut down. I think he cut down on his interceptions. So, as long as you can give him time and he's not hitting his head on the grass and things like that, he should do pretty well this year.
Yeah. Tua and Daniel Jones actually, I think this is 4 point per passing touchdown, but they averaged the same amount of points, 18.4 last year. Just obviously Tua missed 4 games, Daniel Jones missed 1. So you basically, if Tua plays 3 more games, he's he's ahead of, he has about the same amount of points as Daniel Jones, or they have the same amount of points, I should say.
Tua passed for 350 more yards than Daniel Jones did too in 3 less games.
3 less games, yeah, and 10 more touchdowns.
I was gonna say more total touchdowns also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, Tua doesn't give you much rushing, and if anything, rushing. But he was putting up crazy numbers. I mean, he had a 6 touchdown game in week 2, which is crazy. And you just look at like he had 3 straight 3 touchdown games, and with those receivers, he's not going to turn over the ball a lot. He could put up good numbers. So, but we'll finish up there. We'll probably do this a few times throughout the year as ADPs change and we get closer to actual fantasy drafts. But thank you guys for watching. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you guys